Where are you currently working?
I'm currently in Charleston, South Carolina, doing autopsies for the coroner there. Before that, I was in Newberry, South Carolina. I'm CEO of Newberry Pathology Associates and was in Newberry until November of last year.
How many years were you at Newberry?
18, or 19, 18, I'm sorry, yeah. I came in 2000.
Okay. And you mentioned you do autopsy. What is your job?
I'm a forensic pathologist, which means I've been through 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, and at least 5 years of training in pathology. That field, unlike surgery or pediatrics, we learn how to identify and diagnose diseases by using the microscope and the laboratory in the hospital. We also learn how to do an autopsy. I'm also further trained in forensic pathology, which means I'm trained to identify patterns of injury, document those patterns for the court of law, draw fluids for toxicology, and formulate a cause and manner of death.
When you say manner of death, what types of, or what are your choices of manner of death?
Okay. First of all, the cause of death is just that, what caused the death. The manner of death is how that cause came about, whether it was a natural disease, whether it was accidental, suicidal, homicidal, and sometimes we can't determine, so we say undetermined.
Doctor, how many autopsies have you performed?
Over 14,000.
14,000. An opportunity to testify as an expert in forensic pathology in court of law.
Over 200 times.
Your Honor, at this time I'll offer Dr. Ross as an expert in forensic pathology.
No objection.
No objection. And what that means again is Dr. Ross is qualified as an expert in the field of forensic pathology and can offer opinions within that realm field of expertise.
Dr. Ross, September 11th, 2014, were you asked to perform autopsy on 5 children, the Jones children?
Yes, I was.
Now, initially when you got them, had they been identified as who was who?
Initially, they were just labeled J. Doe 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
And that was the way they had been found and marked from the scene with bag 1, bag 2, bag 3, 4, and 5?
Correct.
And you since found out their identities, and you included that in your report.
Yes, I have.
Looking at the first autopsy you did, initially John Doe, number 1, Elias Jones.
Yes.
Can you tell us what you did and do you do an external examination and then do an internal one?
Yes.
Can you tell us how you received the body of Elias Jones and what you did?
Yes. This patient was in 2 black body bags that were zip tied with a yellow tag, but the bags themselves had been torn, consistent with animal eating. And so we opened the bags and saved those for SLED.
Then examining Elias Jones' body, how tall was he?
He measured 45 inches in height.
What else did you note in your external examination?
He was clothed in a short-sleeve shirt which had Sex Gotha elementary logo on it, a pair of size medium shorts, and a pair of 4T white underwear. And he had a lot of decomposition changes, including skin discoloration. The skin gets darker. Skin slippage, the surface of the skin starts sloughing off. Some tissue loss, and that could be from animal eating. Some maggot activity, so indicating that flies were able to get to the patient and lay eggs. Then generally, there was significant decomposition changes.
Dr. Ross, about decomposition, if any human body is placed, the deceased person is placed in a black bag and left out to the elements on hot sunny days for several days, does that expedite that decomposition, or does it slow it down, or does it have any effect?
Yes, temperature is a tremendous influence on decomposition. If you're in the sun, especially in a black bag, if it's a sunny day and a hot day, it's going to speed up the process.
So the condition of the body when it was originally put in the bag may not be exactly what it was when you see it, when it's pulled out of the bag.
Correct.
Now, as far as, let me ask you this. Let me show you State's ID 172. Can you identify this?
Yes, this is a rough sketch, diagram of the patient with my writing to indicate notes of what I'm going to dictate on the case.
Counter offer this into evidence.
Page 172,
Yes, sir.
without objection?
Yes.
172's in.
Looking at 172, the diagram, is that a pre-existing diagram you used in multiple cases?
Yes.
And what's the purpose of your notes that we see there?
Just to give me an idea of what to dictate and where certain features were present. For instance, I put down there's light brown hair. The eye color cannot be told. The teeth are natural.
Is that this writing right here up at the top on 172?
Yes.
Okay.
And then
This portion right here, Doctor.
that's an area, I'm sorry, an area where there was tissue loss.
Right. His hand right here, there's a note you have right there.
I'm sure you can't read my writing. Skeletonization, that means that the soft tissue was eaten off the bones, exposing the bones of the hand and wrist.
Then you have some other notes down here at the bottom of the diagram.
That's generally what I've found as far as decomposition goes: skin discoloration, skin slippage, tissue loss, maggots, and malodor.
Malodor, meaning smell.
Yes.
In an internal examination, what, if anything, did you find?
Well, the internal organs were decomposing also, but you could identify if there was any, like congenital heart disease or tumors, which there were not. There was no natural disease. But in the neck, we found a fracture of the hyoid bone. The hyoid bone sits above the larynx, the voice box, and it's kind of free-floating, held on with muscles and tendons. And that's one area one bone where we can see a fracture as evidence of strangulation. In these kind of cases, when there's decomposition, we x-ray the whole body. The hyoid bone is so small, you can't see it in a major skeletal survey, but we did not see any other fractures, but we did find in holding it and looking at it directly, fracture of that bone.
You made a note that you're looking for also just like congenital defects or other issues that Elijah Jones might have had. Did you find any other physical issues with him that might show he was anything other than a healthy boy?
No, I did not.
So, to your opinion, based on a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that prior to his death, he was a healthy young boy.
Correct.
His stomach, were there any contents in his stomach?
No.
Did you, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, determine the cause of death for Elijah Jones?
Yes.
What was that?
That was asphyxia due to the strangulation.
Asphyxia is what, Doctor?
There's a lack of oxygen, so you're decreasing the blood flow to the brain and causing a lack of oxygenation to the brain.
Brought on by strangulation?
Yes.
And we talked about the manner of death where you had undetermined accident, natural cause, suicide, and homicide. How did you classify this manner?
A homicide.
I'd like to turn to Mira Jones, who was Jane Doe number 2. Did you do an external on her and record how she was presented to you?
Yes. She was received also within 4 plastic bags, which had yellow ties on them, and those bags were also torn. She was inside a sleeping bag, but her body was not clothed.
She was nude.
Correct.
You say the bags were torn. Did it look like maybe one of the investigators tore it, or how did it look to you?
It was irregular, like animal chewing.
Looking at her body as it was presented to you, was it consistent with animal activity?
Yes, there was some tissue loss, and again, some maggot activity indicating that the fact that flies could get inside.
I want to show you what's been marked states 173 for ID. See if you recognize this chart.
Yes, that's a diagram of this Mara Jones at the time of autopsy.
All for this into evidence, Your Honor, is 173. Same document.
No objection. 173 without objection. Sketch from the autopsy.
Thank you, Your Honor. Doctor, can you see your sketch on the board, 173?
Yes.
Now again, looking at the front of the face, you have a notation on the face. What is that?
That's tissue loss, which
You have notes the side of the head as well. What are they?
she had long brown hair and natural teeth.
When you see there's a note right in the middle here, what is that?
That's tissue loss in over the sternum.
The sternum is the area you have marked in the middle of the chest.
Yes.
Okay. Now, looking at, I guess, what would be the left hand, what notations did you make as to the left hand and arm?
The left hand is absent. There's some tissue loss in the left forearm, and there's tissue loss in the right forearm, lower forearm, and hand.
The tissue loss on the right hand and arm, tissue loss on the left arm, and then the left hand, on the left arm, the left hand is missing.
Correct.
And what do we see, your notations down on the legs?
There's tissue loss just above the right knee.
Okay. And what is this?
This decomp.
And again, if Mira Jones were placed in a black bag, or any human being, 3 black bags, I think you said 4.
4, yes.
4. For several days in the hot sun, would that have increased the level of decomposition?
Yes.
And in this case, there was also animal activity.
Correct.
On the internal examination, was her stomach full or not?
It was empty.
As far as the get is, I may mispronounce it, musculoskeletal system.
Yes.
What finding did you have there?
There was what looked like blood clot on the undersurface of the sternum, which, because the decomposition was difficult to identify if there was any pattern or not, so it may or may not represent some kind of blunt force injury there.
Doctor, on a small child, in case you've had a strangulation, have you ever seen trauma to the sternum area, even the clavicle area during strangulation?
Well, small children are elastic more than I am, and to cause asphyxiation on a child or a small person, it can be pressure around the neck, or it could be enough pressure on the chest to hold the person down and not allow breathing to take place. So the chest cannot expand, and that can cause asphyxia.
Did you find any broken bones in the neck?
No.
Doctor, can you have a case of strangulation where there is no broken neck bones?
Yes.
And in a case where you have advanced decomposition, will you always be able to find the physical signs of strangulation?
No, I would not.
But you can't rule it out.
Correct.
Doctor, let me ask you, so I didn't ask you with Elias Jones. When someone is strangled, how long does it take to die?
Strangulation causes lack of blood supply getting to the brain, and also interferes with blood draining from the brain, so there's a lot of pressure on the brain, and that causes unconsciousness within seconds, about 8 seconds. We've witnessed this directly in films, so we know that for a fact. But you may have to maintain that pressure for 3 to 5 minutes to cause total brain death.
Doctor, if somebody passes out in a matter of 8 seconds, if you release that pressure, is it possible for that person to revive?
Yes, within a certain amount of time, yes.
So in order to kill a person, adult or a child, is it your testimony that someone has to maintain that pressure for 3 to 5 minutes?
Correct.
Was there any other, well, let me ask you this. To a reasonable degree of medical certainty, did you reach a conclusion as to the cause of Mira Jones' death?
Yes.
What was that?
Some homicidal violence. It was a homicide, and some by way of some type of violence.
So violence that brought about a homicide.
Correct.
Manner of death, what did you conclude?
Homicide.
Now I want to talk to you about John Doe number 3, which is Gabriel Jones. Again, can we go through, how did he present to you when he was brought? How was he presented?
He was in 3 black plastic bags, which were open, and I was told they were open at the scene. The bags themselves were not torn.
There's no animal activity?
Correct. He was wrapped in a comforter and a pink sheet. He had on a pair of underwear, which I couldn't see the size on. But loosely in the bag also were an adult-sized shirt with partial bleaching appearance. There was also a pair of child's female-type underwear with purple trim and a Hello Kitty pink diary. The underwear had purple trim, and there was also a diary or journal that was from Hello Kitty. He was 36 inches in height. There was also a wet diaper in the bag, but not on him.
So this bag had not only Gabriel Jones, but other items that were placed in the bag,
Correct.
like girls' underwear and a diary.
Yes.
Other things. How did he present to you? How did he look on your external examination?
He had decomposition changes, skin discoloration and slippage. There was no maggot activity. And also, again, because of the decomposition, we did full body x-rays and found no fractures. But on the right side of the neck was an impression that was kind of wide. It included 2 parallel lines on the side of the neck.
I want to show you what's been marked States ID 174 and see if you can identify this diagram.
Yes, that's the diagram I made at the time of autopsy.
And this is on Gabriel Jones.
Correct.
No objection.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
No objection.
Doctor, looking at States 174. Gabriel Jones. Now, you mentioned something about the neck. What was that?
It was hard to show on the diagram. It was mostly on the right side of the neck, underneath the ear and underneath the mandible, the jawbone. There were two parallel lines there.
What is that indicative of or consistent with?
Was an impression that could be a type of ligature, something that was a little bit wide like a belt or a sash or something.
Okay, I want to show you what's already been placed into evidence. States 168, a black belt. Would a belt like this be consistent with the ligature marks you see on Gabriel Jones' neck?
Yes, something like that would be consistent.
And doctor, describing the ligature marks, how did the lines run together, or how did those lines run?
They were parallel for some distance, and then they came together underneath the chin, and then they disappeared. So
This is on the right side.
correct.
So do they cross one another?
No,
They run parallel?
parallel. Mhm.
Doctor, if you look at your report, I think you said they weren't parallel.
Sorry. Well, they
On the external examination. I know it's been a long time.
yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, they come close and cross underneath the chin, and then they widened out.
Okay.
So they came to like a V.
Which would be consistent with cinching.
Yes.
Now, as to the lower extremities, do you see anything in your report, or did you note anything in your report about how he presented as far as his, particularly his right leg?
Yes, the right leg was disarticulated at the knee, which means the knee joint was cut into and separated so that the right calf and foot were separate from the right thigh.
And when you say that, would this be describing leg going back up towards the body, up to the torso, where the foot, instead of down next to the other foot, you see the diagram, would it have been facing up towards the face?
Well, when we opened the bag, yes, the patient was face down, and you could see the foot coming up underneath his arm, basically. So it was not aligned correctly. But the incision in the soft tissue was consistent with a sharp instrument.
Is stomach full or not full?
It's empty.
The reasonable degree of medical certainty did you determine a cause of death for Gabriel Jones?
Probable strangulation.
The homicidal violence with probable strangulation?
Yes.
But more than likely,
Strangulation, yes.
in manner of death,
Homicide.
we'll move on to Jane Doe number 4, Abigail Jones.
Yes. She was received in 2 plastic bags, which were open at the seam, but were not torn. There were 2 sheets around the body, which were blue and with multicolored patterns. There was a piece of paper in there from Kangaroo Express.
Is that like a receipt?
Yes.
Okay.
It was difficult to read because of the fluid on it. And she was wearing a diaper. She was 30 inches in height.
I'll show you what's been marked stage 175 for ID. It's another diagram. You recognize this?
Yes, that's the diagram from the autopsy. Jane Doe number 4.
Your Honor, all for this into evidence.
Objection, sorry.
175, stretch, Abigail, no objection.
Dr. Ross, looking at this diagram, 175 of Abigail Jones. What, if any findings do you have or notations did you make from your diagram?
It's that she had long brown hair, this question mark eyes, and in other words, couldn't see what eye color it was because of the cloudiness. Teeth are natural. And otherwise, down on the bottom, generally the decomposition changes, including skin discoloration, skin slippage, and malodor. No maggots.
How tall was she?
30 inches.
Did you do an internal examination as well?
Yes,
How was her hyoid bone?
it was intact.
The rest of her organs, to the extent that you could tell?
No evident natural disease.
Her GI tract, her stomach?
Stomach was empty.
A reasonable degree of medical certainty, did you determine a cause of death?
Yes,
What was that?
homicidal violence.
And manner of death?
Homicide.
Let me ask you about Abigail Jones. Again, we know the decomposition. Do you see any outward signs of strangulation?
No,
But you can't rule that out.
correct.
And is that why your cause of death is homicidal violence?
Yes,
Just as it was for Mira Jones.
correct.
Now I want you to look at John Doe for 5.
Yes.
Which is Matan Jones. How did he present to you?
He was wrapped in 2 black plastic bags that were open at the scene, but they were not torn. He was covered with a comforter, which had a design of Ninja Turtles. He was 43 inches in height. Yes, he had brown hair, could not tell what color the eyes were.
Doctor, decomposition, is it safe to say the eyes sometimes decompose more quickly than other parts of the body?
Well, in decomposition, you dehydrate, so the fluid in your eyes evaporates basically, and the eyes collapse, and the cornea and the outside of the eye becomes cloudy, so it's difficult to identify color.
And looking at him externally, do you see make any other findings?
He had some tissue loss also on his left lower thigh area, right above the knee, and exposed in the bone there. And in the bone, it looked like what we call an incised wound, a wound made by a sharp instrument, consistent with a saw.
I'll show you what's been marked. States ID 176. Is this the diagram you used with the Tom Jones?
Yes.
Offer this into evidence.
No objection.
No objection to the sketch.
Doctor, looking at this diagram, the notations you have around the head area, what do those say?
Brown hair and natural teeth.
And then looking at, it's like his left elbow, what is that?
Yeah, the back of the left elbow, there was some tissue loss there. I couldn't tell from what.
Could you tell whether it was before he died or after he died?
No,
But you made that notation.
correct.
The knee, what did you see with the knee?
There's some tissue loss there exposing the underlying bone, thigh bone, the lower part of it, which showed that incised wound as I described.
A sharp instrument had been used.
Yes.
The notes you have over on the other side of the diagram, what's that say about it?
That's the, it says, that refers to the wound in the left femur,
Okay.
incised wound, left femur.
Doctor, when you do autopsies, do you also take photographs?
Yes,
Document what you're doing?
yes,
And to document your findings?
yes.
I'd like to show you just one photograph. Doctor states 177 for ID. What is this?
That's the left knee on this number 5, Nathan Jones.
Nathan?
Nathan Jones, yes.
And does this show where the sharp object cut?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'll offer this into evidence.
No previous objection.
Subject to objections, 177 be admitted.
Your Honor, if I may ask Dr. Ross to step down
You may.
so I can have her assist me publish. This states 177. Doctor, if we can look at this half of the jury, and then we'll walk down to the second half so they can see.
Yes.
Looking at states 177, what are we looking at?
Okay, first of all, when I take a photograph at the time of autopsy, I put the number such that the head is above that number. So that this indicates this is the left knee, this is the knee joint itself, this is the exposed thigh bone femur, and right here, this dark area is just the wound on the surface of the bone.
Is that, where is the cutting or tool marks you saw
Right here.
in that dark area?
Yes.
We can step down here.
So the number shows that the head is this way, foot's this way, the knee joint itself is right here. This is the end of the femur, and that dark line there is the cut mark.
Thank you, Doctor. Doctor, as to Natan Jones, to the extent that you were able, did you determine whether he had any pre-existing physical defects or if he was an otherwise healthy 6-year-old boy?
He had no evident natural disease.
So he was an otherwise healthy 6-year-old boy?
Yes.
Have you also had the benefit of information from a pediatrician who has seen him?
Yes. From records from 2012, I believe.
The review of that, would you say he was a healthy boy at that time as well?
That was the indication, yes.
As to his stomach contents, did you find any contents in his stomach?
Yes, he had about 50 cc's, about a cupful of brown food with, the only thing I could identify maybe is possibly a part of a red cherry.
Of all the children, he was the only one you found some food substance in the stomach?
Correct.
Dr. Brown, let me ask you a little bit more and ask you about physical exertion. Is it possible to kill a young child by physical exertion?
Yes. Children in particular will dehydrate faster than adults because they have a larger body surface than the body mass. So they lose fluid quicker than adults. If you're working, exercise and whatever physical activity for a lengthy period of time, then you can lose enough fluid to become dehydrated.
Would there be any visible signs to an observer that the child was in danger?
They'd start to become weak and maybe disoriented and eventually become unconscious.
Does that happen quickly or is it over time?
Depends on the situation and the history of the patient. But it would take, several minutes, many minutes, maybe 15, 20. Hard to say.
When a child is just in dire straits?
Yes.
Now, doctor, as to the time, was his state of decomposition, did that impair your ability to determine whether strangulation was a possibility?
Yes, it did.
Can you rule out strangulation?
No.
And again, with strangulation, is it possible to strangle a human being or a child and not break any bones?
Correct, yes.
And in the case of all these children, with the level of decomposition, that made that determination difficult by looking at the skin.
Yes.
What was your, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, the cause of death for Natan Jones?
Again, homicidal violence.
So this was not a natural death.
No.
Manner of death, how did you rate this?
Homicide.
Doctor, there was testimony of muriatic acid being found in the car, an empty bottle. If that had been placed on the body, would you have been able to tell based due to the level of decomposition?
No, that's quite a weak acid, but I still whether it burned the skin or not. I wouldn't be able to tell.
So whether it was used or not, the level of decomposition by the time these children ended up in your presence, you could not make a determination.
No, I cannot.
Mr. Natan Jones, cause of death, homicidal violence, is that the same as your findings for Abigail and Mira Jones as well?
Yes.
And again, if there was any physical abuse, hitting, spanking, would decomposition make that hard to detect?
Absolutely. You couldn't tell bruises. Yeah.
And that's true for all these children?
Yes.
It's true for Natan Jones?
Yes.
Your conclusion as to him is homicidal violence?
Yes.
Doctor, I believe that's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Ross.
Good morning.
Dr. Ross, were you able to determine or asked to determine time of death?
No.
Were you told, or was it relayed to you that the probable time of death was around August 28th?
Yes.
And was that consistent with the level of decomposition that you observed on September the 11th?
There's no magic way of telling how long somebody's been dead by looking at decomposition, because it's so related to the situation, the temperature of the patient before they died, all kind of situations.
There was nothing inconsistent with what had been reported to you in your findings, saying, well, no, it wasn't 28, it was 6.
Correct. There's nothing inconsistent with it.
You knew that that it had been reported to you that the advised children had been in a car during the summer, driven around the southeast for about 9 days.
Yes.
And then they were placed in garbage bags and put out in the woods, right?
Yes.
At the time of your autopsy, you knew that Timothy Jones had reported that he had did not know how Natan had died.
Yes.
That he had exercised him and that he had passed.
Correct.
And your testimony today is that that's possible.
Correct.
There's nothing inconsistent found in what Tim says happened.
Correct.
And matter of fact, the issue with Natan having food in his digestive tract sort of indicates that he did die at some time before the other 4.
Either that or with exercise or stress, sometimes your GI tract, your intestinal tract will slow down and not process food. So it's either he ate later than the other kids, or his stress level was such that the food stayed in his stomach.
Okay. And none of the other children had anything in their stomach, right?
That's correct.
And that could be because they were killed late.
Could be, yes.
You did full body x-rays of all of the children involved?
Yes.
There were no old fractures, old breaks, old indications that they had been abused or anything like that?
No, there were not.
Ross, I'm going to show you what's been marked as offenses number 114 through 118. That's you correct.
And Your Honor, for clarification, I need to know if these are her documents or are these were somebody else's?
These are the forms, in this state, the coroner signs death certificates. This is a form from the autopsy where we put down what we think should be put. And I think the one on Natan was later amended.
Okay, it was later amended. That's your signature on these documents?
Yes.
What are they again?
Your cause of death certificates. Is that what these are?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, this time the defense would offer 114 through 118 in them.
I object to the one that was later amended. I have no objection to that amendment. Once it was amended, said that exactly. That specifically is the one we're talking about. Judge said she amended it.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
She can talk about how she amended it later, but this is the one she signed and this is the one that was turned over to us. It's separate.
okay, but is one, this can be amended, not handy and also rules?
I haven't seen another one that was amended. If they-
I object to it. If there is an amended one, I think the final report needs to be.
All right. Let's see if we can find the amended one also.
I don't have a copy of it.
Tell you what, Your Honor, I'll speed it up. If he wants to put those in, that's fine. I'll just handle it on read the record.
Fair enough. So 114 through 118 are admitted, subject to the one on the time, whichever one that is. The witness has noted that she recollects it being amended by her. And that's not a part of these yet. So these are in.
These are in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That Ross, I have up here defense number 114. Can you see it from over there?
Yes.
Okay, and this is on Elias where you said immediate cause of death, asphyxiation, manual strangulation, right?
Yes.
And that was because he had the broken hyoid, and that was consistent with Tim's report that he had strangled Elias, right?
Yes.
On 115, this is the cause of death for Mira Jones.
Yes. No.
And this one you listed probable strangulation, right? As the immediate cause of death?
That should be, it should be Gabriel.
Does it say Mira at the top of it?
It does there, but
Does it say white female?
I don't have copies of those, but I think those were,
Well, can you see right here the autopsy number FA 14679?
correct. That's Mira, but that's, I think these were all corrected afterwards.
So that's Mira, right?
These were printed out at the time of autopsy and then later reviewed and corrected.
This is your signature right here, right?
Yes.
7.2.
Yes.
You signed it.
Yes.
Okay. So it says probable strangulation,
Yes.
and it has Mira's name on
Yes.
it. And this FA 14679, that's the number that was used for Mira's autopsy.
Correct.
Okay. And at that time, you said probable strangulation because you didn't have any injuries, right? You didn't have any other cause of death
That's correct.
other than what Tim Jones had reported to law enforcement that he had strangled Mira.
Well, at that time, I didn't know that. I don't think. I think I found out afterwards.
Okay, I thought earlier when I was asking you questions, you knew that Tim had reported that he had exercised time and said he had fallen down and that he had strangled the other 4 children.
I'm sorry, I can't remember when I heard that.
Okay.
Could be.
So your testimony earlier may have been incorrect. That
Correct.
You didn't know that at the time of the autopsy.
I'm not sure if I did or not.
Okay. Defense exhibit number 116, it says for Gabriel Jones that the immediate cause of death was probable strangulation, right?
Correct.
Now, in Gabriel's case, you testified today that you had some marks on his neck that were consistent with strangulation, right?
Correct.
And you also may or may not have known that Tim had reported the strangulation of Gabriel.
Correct.
Defense exhibit number 117, this is for Abigail Jones. You listed probable strangulation as the cause of death, right?
Yes.
And here again, you didn't have any evidence during the autopsy that it was strangulation other than what Tim Jones had reported to law enforcement, right?
Correct.
Now, on defense number 118, this is for Natan Jones, right?
Yes.
And in this immediate cause, you said could not be determined, right?
Yes, and that was changed to homicidal violence afterwards.
Changed by you, coroner.
Both of us.
Okay. And this is your signature on this document.
Yes.
So at the time that you did the autopsy, you said we can't determine,
Correct.
but you later changed it to homicidal violence.
Correct.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as defense exhibits number 113, sorry, I didn't out of order. Show you what's been marked for ideas. Defense exhibits number 109 through 113, and ask you if you recognize those.
Yes.
Are those pictures that you took during the course of your autopsy?
Yes.
Is one of the pictures of Elias Jones as he was at the time that you got in for autopsy?
Correct.
It's one of the pictures of Mira Jones, and that is number 110, I think.
Yes.
And the number 109 is a picture of Mira Jones as she was at the time of the autopsy.
Yes.
Number 111 is a picture of Gabriel Jones as he was at the time of the autopsy.
$109. Is Mara Jones, 679.
Can you just go through and identify each one of those?
Okay, 110 is case number 678, which is Elias Jones. Exhibit 109 is case number 679, which is Mira Jones. $112 is our case number 680 on Gabriel Jones. 113 is our case number 681 on Abigail Jones. And number 111 is 682 on Natan Jones.
The art this time I'd offered fifth exhibit number 109 through 114 in the
Subject to the in-camera hearing, the court's not going to allow the introduction this time.
course indulgence. Okay, Ross, just a couple more questions about, and I'm referring back to the autopsy of Gabriel Jones, just FA 14680.
Yes,
Gabriel, you had talked about his lower leg being disarticulated
yes,
during your direct examination. Now, and you have your report in front of you.
yes,
At the time you wrote your report, you said the bones at the knee were intact, no evidence of sawing present.
correct,
The soft tissue edges of this defect so much decomposition and it's difficult to identify whether this injury is premortem or postmortem.
correct.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. So much that.
Just a few follow-up. Documents. Fence exhibits 114, 115, 116, 117, and 118. Going through those, did you find some of these are not accurate with your final conclusions?
Yes, those were printed out at the time of autopsy, and after review with my colleagues on this situation and how death certificate should be summarized, since there's two of them had evidence of probable strangulation, the others didn't have any indication of injury, but a lot of decomposition changes, and the term used by most medical examiners is homicidal violence. That's why homicidal violence was on the subsequent end death certificate.
Well, going through these, 114 is as to Elias, where before you had strangulation, homicide by strangulation.
Yes.
Here it has manual strangulation. Did you see any ligature marks?
No.
Now, looking at 115, which is Mira Jones, here it says probable strangulation. That wasn't your ultimate conclusion, was it?
No, it was not.
It was homicidal violence?
Yes.
As to 116, which is Gabriel Jones, had probable strangulation. Now, correct, you had homicidal violence, probable strangulation,
Yes.
and he's the child, the 2-year-old that had the ligature marks on his right neck and jaw.
Correct.
Abigail, the 1-year-old, which is Defense Exhibit 117, says probable strangulation. Did you find any broken bones, hyoid bones, or any bruising around the neck for probable strangulation?
Not specifically, but with decomposition, you couldn't tell if there were contusions, bruises or not.
So how did you rule her death? The cause?
In the end, homicidal violence.
Homicidal violence. And the time, which is 118, which said could not be determined, you did make a conclusion on that. You just talked with your colleagues and y'all looked at this one hard, correct?
Yes.
You had other factors to consider, like physical exertion and things that were presented to you as possibilities that might lead to death.
Yes.
But is it fair to say no matter what, you had to look at a child that was in a heavy state of decomposition?
Correct.
So your conclusion was homicidal violence.
Yes.
So Natan Jones, Abigail Jones, and Mira Jones all had the same conclusion, homicidal violence.
That's correct.
And as for manner of death, you had homicide for each one.
Yes.
Specifically as to Natan, the issue about accident. Did you reject accident as to Natan Jones and determine
That's
manner of
speculation.
death?
I know, she's a forensic pathologist expert. She can answer if she can form an opinion. Rephrase it, please.
You had as a possible choice for manner of death, accident for Natan Jones. Did you accept that or reject that?
No, the definition of homicide to me is the death of a person at the activity or inactivity of another.
Okay, so if somebody's subjecting somebody with either trauma or not getting them help after they've been put in trauma by that person, that's
Yes,
so as far as manner of death, you saw no accident at the time, Jones.
correct.
Thank you.
Everything that you observed during your autopsies was consistent with what you had been told Tim Jones had told law enforcement, correct?
Well, again, I don't remember when I heard what he stated. I think I probably did hear that he's strangled. But other than that, we look for evidence of strangulation versus something else.
Right. And as far as the time goes, the evidence was consistent with him saying he exercised him until he got exhausted and then checked on him and found him deceased.
That's consistent, yes.
And as far as Elias, Mira, Gabriel, and Abigail or Elaine, he had reported law enforcement that he had strangled them, right?
Yes.
Two with his hands and two with a belt, right?
I didn't hear that.
Okay.
Exactly.
But the evidence in your autopsy was consistent with what he had reported to law enforcement, right?
Yes,
Including the one cut on Natan's lip.
correct.
One, just for clarification.
Right.
As to the time, did you also determine?
1 second.
Sorry, that's it. Thank you. But it is also your testimony, you can't rule out strangulation for all 5 children,
Correct.
including the time.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Ross, you may step down.
Darn,
Yes.
you know, put some stuff on the record or work outside the premises during.
Okay, well, it's time for a break anyway. That'll work. You may step down. All right. Oh, well then, I'll hold her up. I thought we could go further. But let's take a short break. I'll step to the jury room, then we'll get you back in here and hopefully we'll have lunch, coming soon. So